In this video, I will be talking about some interesting progress regarding NeoPark as well as NIO's battery swapping. First, let's jump into an article by the German newspaper Zeit, which was just published, and this one is auto-translated, and it was an interview with Mr. Zhang, who is like the vice president of Europe, I think, for NIO. I met him personally before in Berlin. He's a really enthusiastic and interesting guy, and in this video Mr. Zhang is talking about where NIO is coming from, what they are doing different from Tesla, and what are the prospects of NIO going overseas. And the interesting part I found was in the last question when Site Online was asking him about the prospects of the battery swapping, and are you already talking about with other manufacturers? And so NIO, or Mr. Zhang, is answering here that I'm not allowed to give any names, but conversations are taking place. The Chinese government has just set a standard for battery replacement, so that's what I've been talking before, and has taken NIO as a model, so that's also very important. Now several manufacturers have announced plans to offer battery swaps, including SAIC, so that's the joint venture of Volkswagen and the largest state-owned automaker in China, and Geely. Regarding Geely, I've reached out to them and asked whether or not they are going to adopt the NIO standardization of the battery swapping, and no, they have built their own one, but still that means that possibly they also need to use some of the patents that NIO has registered in China, but also the US, in order, for instance, to build battery swap stations and also using the technology in the car. So this is possibly not one of the manufacturers that NIO is talking about here, interestingly, that they are in talks around the battery swapping technology there. And so first of all, I think it's great news that NIO is getting this publicity here and the interview in this big recognized German newspaper. In my views, it's mostly targeting some of the younger readers, I would say, the more educated ones, so should be good for reaching the target group. And those who possibly don't know about those Chinese names in the EV world yet, so that's good on the one hand side. And then this news that they're actually talking with other manufacturers around the battery swapping technology and possibly licensing it. That is something which I haven't heard NIO executives speaking of before too publicly, actually. And who might it be? Well, I've no idea. First came to my mind actually Volkswagen. I know that might be a large shot here, but a volume producer that could actually license it for one of the larger platforms. That would be interesting to see. Also, NIO is actually quite a bit in competition, I would say, with Audi, and Audi is still working with their first pilot platform for electric drivetrains. Right now, most of their EVs are basically remodeled gas guzzlers that now have a battery, and so they need to build it up from scratch, use stuff like NIO already has, like the over-the-air firmware updates for most of the electrical components and stuff like that, and also may in this step think about what would be the best way for charging and possibly swapping. And the reason why I'm thinking that, well, this might be interesting here is because obviously Volkswagen and Audi are having a huge stake in China, and if China is going so far and says that battery swapping will become a standard, a national standard, and I've made a video about this also with the German Pope of Automotive, Ferdinand Dudenhöfer, saying that this might be in the books, then Volkswagen certainly needs to think about it at least. And so, while I would say this is highly speculative, don't counter me saying that, but that would have been my first guess, my intuition, my feeling of who could be the one where they are talking about, although once again Volkswagen or Audi specifically denied before that they are looking into battery swapping. And so, well, let's see, but they also have all of their issues around the current charging with Ionity and so on in Europe as well as in the US, so we may see what will be the ultimate solution for them as well. Then the next article is about NeoPark and the development here that you can see by this drone footage and the screenshot here. And it's originally in Chinese. The article came out on the 28th, so quite recent. And thanks a lot for posting it in our Patreon community. So this article talks about the progress that has been made in this factory so far, constructing it. And what I found interesting here is some latest numbers here. So the construction period is very tight. About 90% of the progress will be completed in only 7 months. But of course, also the impact of the pandemic must be overcome and might be a challenge so far. Another interesting insight here is that 3,000 people are actually working on the construction. And it's giving some details on the timeline, which I never heard before, which is interesting. So we know that they have started around April with the full construction and that they will complete the steel structure in August. So now we can already see the more completed steel structure, but already also the roof. So this is already further down the line of the progress here. And this is super interesting. It is expected that the process installation conditions will be available by November. So that is now, and where the production line equipment can actually already enter. So that would be really interesting to see that they are now starting already to finalize the building from the outside, but actually start with the inside and starting with bringing the tooling and some of the bigger equipment into the factory. So that reminds me actually of the stage that the Giga Shanghai was when I visited the first time, because I was actually there first when I saw the first Bosch equipment coming in, and then the immediate start of the production was only a couple of months away, maybe less than 2 quarters. And so if this is all going well, then that may mean really the imminent production in this first phase, which would be around 300,000 cars capacity, to be starting already, well, next year. Yeah, that's the plan, but I'm kind of surprised to see that now in November they may actually start with bringing the machinery in there. And so I'm not sure if this is actually still the schedule right now, but if so, that is really aggressive in my views, and once again tells us how well China's speed helps to, well, build such kind of factories. There is currently a rumor around Tesla building a second gigafactory in Qingdao, but I think the rumor is not really substantial, and even Tesla has already denied it. But if I were in Tesla's shoes, I would possibly also think about a second factory in China. Meanwhile, maybe even based on seeing what is happening with the factory upgrade of the current factory and the progress of the new factory, Deutsche Bank has raised the price target by $10, now having a price target of $70 for the NIO stock. And that is because next year they expect 160K deliveries versus previously 150K. And for 2030, they expect 285K deliveries, while it was previously 245K. And for 2025, they expect now 750K versus previously 465K. So substantial increases in the expected output of NIO there and their sales. If I compare it with the business case that I have done, I was expecting 95,000 cars by this year. It may be a little bit lower now given the low deliveries in October, but for next year I'm actually expecting another doubling there by almost 200,000 cars, and I think they may have a chance of actually growing to 400,000 vehicles by 2023 and hitting 1 million vehicles by 2025. So you can see my case here is tremendously more aggressive than Deutsche Bank actually here, which if I'm right, then Deutsche Bank may have some space there on more upgrades to come, but I may also be too aggressive with my 100% year-over-year growth continuing here in the next years. But if I look at the way that they have now improved the second line in the current factory, the next factory coming on, and so on, and introducing a range of different new models, it depends a little bit how well they can execute, but I think those kind of high growth rates may actually be possible. But I will go deeper into those kind of projections in some other videos. And if you want to see my latest business case here, you can always sign up with my Patreon and then watch a 1-hour video where I go through all of these assumptions, the market projections, the EV ramping, all over the segments and stuff like that. That's already in the Patreon community. So thank you guys for watching and see you in the next one.